Hello everyone, my name is Coach Reeder. I am here today to go ahead and go over some of the JV awards that we have and talk about everyone. This season has not been a normal season. The kids have had a lot to fight through, the young men, and first and foremost I just want to say they handled it very well. There were some times where kids were quarantined for 2 weeks and they'd come back and have to play on game day and they would perform very well. It's always fun to coach here, and I love being a part of this Farmington football family, and every year each group is so different, and it's awesome to see how each group grows throughout the season. And I think the growth that this group has gone through has been probably the biggest since I've been here. They're a group that really love to work out and get in the weight room, and that will benefit them throughout their next 4 years. So let's go ahead and get into the awards. So our first player, Hunter Darsham. Now Hunter is a kid that started out as a quarterback, and we had to move him to line, and he really embraced it and was able to excel at it. He understood that if he wouldn't have made that move, we may not have been playing, just due to lack of numbers. So I'm really proud of him for that, and he's really taken that role on and become a leader in that role, and his growth has been exponential. I mean, it's been awesome to see him grow and take those leadership roles on. He's a kid that is going to have a bright future here and going to lead those other guys as long as he just puts in the work ethic and does what he needs to do. So that's Hunter Darsham. Next player, Kyle Litchfield. Kyle Litchfield, man. Kyle Litchfield, I have had the pleasure of coaching the last 2 years. He's another kid that he may not be on the field if he wouldn't have gotten in the weight room, and he's turned himself into a really good player. I can trust him when he's out there. He's a real cerebral kid. He's a smart kid, but even he started lifting as an 8th grader, came in, lifted his tail off last year, lifted his tail off during the COVID year that we've had, and he's a kid that I cannot wait to see at the varsity level and see what he can show us. He's a kid that I'm really proud of. And Kyle, you're my guy, man. You're my guy. So that's Kyle. Caden Runyon, another young man who really blossomed this year. I know he had some injuries his freshman year. He was in quarterback, couldn't find his rhythm. Came in this year and he really excelled on the offensive side of the ball as far as wide receiver. And I'm really excited to see what he does at the varsity level. He's a kid I'm really proud of. So, Gage Rankin. So Gage, because of the COVID shutdown, he's a kid that he didn't play a meaningful game for like a year and a half due to injuries that he suffered his freshman year, and he really came out and was a kid that we could count on. And I don't know if you guys know, but at the sophomore level, a lot of times they will practice with the varsity, and they won't get as many reps, and they won't be the first string, but they'll get reps when they need to. And Gage is a guy that wasn't with us often, but he was able to know what he was doing and just fill in when we needed him right away. So I'm really proud of Gage. Keep it up, man. Another kid that likes the weight room. So Tanner Kenny. Tanner Kenny. I've told Tanner I didn't know if he'd be a baller, but he got himself in the weight room, and he is a kid. And there's a lot of this group that I will say this, that he got himself in the weight room, and Tanner has turned himself into a player, and he is going to be vital to what this team does going forward. I mean, there were a few times that other coaches were like, number 23 is a good player. He's a good ball player. I can't say enough about Tanner. He's a quiet kid, doesn't say much, but this year he started to open up a little bit with me. I mean, but he's a kid that works his tail off in the weight room. He's gonna have a role next year if he keeps doing what he's supposed to be doing. And he's a coachable kid, and those are some qualities that I think are going to do him well in the future. So, good job, Tanner. I'm proud of you, man. Reese Shemansky, what a kid, man. He's just a ton. Reese, you've really grown up this year. I've told you that. You still say some silly stuff, but I guess that's what you get when you have a Shemansky, right? But I'm really proud of Reese. The relationship that we've got and the leadership skills that he's shown for his team and his willingness to do whatever it takes to get the job done and just go 100 miles an hour each play. Those are things that we really value. So interested to see, just excited to see what he does at the varsity level next year. So he also got reps at varsity. So okay, so Colin Terrell. Colin Terrell is another one of those guys. If the weight room didn't become his best friend, he would not have seen the field. He is a kid that, small but mighty. I mean, he just lays the wood, man. He's a kid that he would deliver those wow hits out there. But like I said, Colin found the weight room. He lives in there, works his tail off. I mean, most of the time he looks like he's gonna throw up as he's walking out. Looks like he hates it, but he does what he needs to do. He understands that if he wants to play, he's got to be in there. And he's a kid that I'm really proud of and that has really come a long way. And I think he's going to have a role at the varsity level going forward. So keep it up, Colin. Logan Morse. Logan Morse is a kid that, once again, didn't get many reps with us at the JV level, but when he did come down, the demeanor of practice, the demeanor of the reps changed. He's a kid that a walking touchdown. We get him the ball, he's going to score. Great athletic ability. Really proud of the effort and the leadership skills that he shows out there. The intensity and the focus is something that he brought to the team when he was out there on the field, on the sidelines at the JV games, and that was a really good role that he played. But Logan, also another kid that I'm excited to see what he does at the first level. So really proud of Logan. Connor Huber. Connor Huber, and this is the mantra with this class. Connor Huber is a kid that lived by the weights. Another kid that played corner for us, delivered the hits. Him and Colin Terrell, synonymous with each other. They just like to hit. They go out there and they do their job well. They're disciplined. Connor lived in the weight room. Another kid that really lives in the weight room. So he knows what he has to do. Great young man. Gabe Thompson. Gabe Thompson is one of our linemen. He's a kid that played both sides of the line this year. A young man that knows what he has to do going forward. He has to apply himself in the weight room. We already know he has brains. I mean, smart kid, good kid you can trust. But he needs to live in the weight room. Gabe, I'm proud of you, man. You know what you have to do, right, going forward. Once again, a kid that I love having on the team. He's a kid you can trust. He's a quiet leader. He's a kid that we could put on the line at any position, and he would know what he was doing. So, really, really good utility lineman to have. Virgil Haggard. Virgil is another kid that another young man that we didn't have as much. He was with the varsity a lot, but when he came down, the feel of practice changed. He's there to get stuff done. He loves football, loves his teammates. Really, really a great kid to have on the team. And another Haggard, so we got two of those. So Sam Mcmillan. Sam Mcmillan is a kid that was used to having the ball in his hands, but he understood that in order for us to succeed this year, he was going to have to move to line. And he embraced it. He loves football. He was physical. I mean, he's a big body now. He likes to lift. He's in the weight room. He's an athlete. But he's another kid that if he wouldn't have made that move for his teammates, we may not have been able to play. another kid, but not only that, but he excelled at it. He's a kid that I could count on at his position. He's a kid that you could just plug in and play and succeed. So this year being his first year at line, really proud of Sam. I can't say enough about Sam. So going forward, he's another kid that's going to have a role. So Sam, you got to commit yourself to the weight room, keep it up, keep doing your job, man. All right, Sam Grobal. Sam Grobal is another kid that we talked about having to move to change some positions, and he took it in stride, and he did what was best for the team, and he also excelled. He's a kid, smart kid. He's a leader out there. He's another kid that we sometimes wouldn't have because he's with the varsity. So another kid that came in and filled in when needed and played both sides of the ball for us, and just is a very versatile player. Very smart kid. We like a lot of those. We like kids like this that can play many different positions and do it with a yes sir, because that's what the team needed, right? Okay, now that is enough of the sophomore, so let's go ahead and go to the freshmen. So, Zach Taylor. Zach is a kid who struggled coming out just because, like, he was a basketball player. There's quite a few of these kids that were basketball players, so they were going to basketball, they were coming to football practice. Took him a little while to get into the hang of things, but once he got there, he was able to adapt and do well for us. At times, we would just throw him in at different positions, and he was able to adapt and play his spot as needed. Zach's another kid that's in the weight room often. He knows what he needs to do to get to the next level and be a player for us. So, good job, Zach. Keep it up, man. Will Roper. Will Roper's a kid that got the opportunity to play for us this year. He's another kid that can play many different positions. He's a kid that always asks questions. He wants to know what he's doing so that he can get playing time, and he wants to do what's best for the team. He's always asking questions. He always wants to understand what he's doing so that he doesn't make a mistake. He got time at quarterback. He got time at outside backer. He got time at wide receiver. I mean, he's a kid that is going to be very versatile for us going into next year. So, good job. Will, thank you for being that. Oh, Jack the Snack Adams. So Jack is a kid that came out this year and he loves football. He discusses with me and Coach Hayden sometimes like the different concepts we have, conversations I've probably not had with other freshmen before. And he like I said, he loves football. He's a kid that said, "I'll play whatever you want me to play. I just want to be out there." He was our backup quarterback. He got some starts this year due to COVID quarantines, and he's a kid that is going to be a leader going forward into next year. He's an athletic kid. He's smart. He's a kid that we can count on, and he just loves football. His love for football is commendable. So can't wait to see what Jack does for us next year at the JV level. So Keandre Barnes. Now this guy was always coming to me saying, "Coach, don't play me a defense. I don't play defense." But we got to the point where we were throwing him out at defensive end, and he loved it. So he's a kid that kind of grew into loving football. I love having him on the team. Him and I have a good relationship. He's got a good relationship with his teammates. He loves to lift. He's always sending Coach Hoffman pictures, or he's always telling us how he's lifting at home, you know. So Keandre is a kid that's going to be a two-way starter for us next year at the JV level, and I'm excited to see how he performs and what he brings to us. So, Rylan Barton. Now, Rylan Barton's a kid that was on the fence last year, and I was really impressed with what he brought to our team this year. He's a kid that we needed to get the ball into his hands, and he's going to be another kid that's going to start next year for us at the JV level, and he's going to be a vital part of what we do. And I'm really interested to see what he brings to the table. Also, another kid that was quarantined multiple times and had to just show up and be ready to play because he pulled some pulled the short straw a couple times. So, Rylan, good job. Hope to see you out next year, buddy. Keegan Jennings. Keegan Jennings, what a guy. Keegan Jennings is a kid, ran the ball for us this year. Small but mighty, he's a wrestler, tough kid, type of kid that you want on your team. He's a kid that would come to practice and then go to wrestling. So another kid that works his tail off, brings a lot of positivity to the team, a lot of humor, but at the same time knows what he's doing and was able to run the ball pretty well behind our line. So next year, looking to get Keegan the ball more. He'll be one of the feature backs, so good job. Elias Hart. Elias Hart is a kid that we can put in many different positions. Another kid that loves football, loves Farmington football. Next year, he's going to have a much bigger role. He's a kid that can play multiple positions on the field. He's a kid that loves to lift, loves to do what he needs to do in the weight room. So another kid I have become very close with and that I'm really proud of and can't wait to see what he does in the future. Dane Hitchcock. Dane is a kid that loves football. He would do anything to help the team win. He is also another kid that, he's probably the fastest kid on the team, to be honest. And he knows that if we want to be successful and if he wants to have a role and he wants to be successful, the position that he played this year, he's going to have to continue. And he knows he's got to get a little bigger, get in the weight room, but I'm not worried about that. He's a hard worker, another kid I love to have on the team. Ben Clayball. This is big Ben Clayball's first year playing ball. He traded time with us and Scholastic Bowl with a couple of our kids because this year was so chaotic with playing multiple sports. And he's a kid that came out first year, picked up on it, brought some humor to the team, brought good positivity. I loved getting him out there. As long as he had his pregame McChickens, he was good, right, Ben? So happy to have Ben on the team. Jax Wright. Jax Wright, I believe, is another kid that first year he played a couple games at JFL. Another kid that really grew into loving football. I know we missed him at the couple games at the end of the year due to some circumstances, family circumstances, and we were all there with him, and we all care about Jax, and just want to say I can't wait to have him back out next year and see what he can do. He's a kid that really brings some continuity to our team. So, Colin Barrett. Colin Barrett is a kid that I knew was different right off the bat. Big guy, big lineman, smart kid. Does a really good job at the skills that he does on the line. Another kid that's going to have a bright future here, but Colin knows he has to get in the weight room, right? He has to live in the weight room. So another kid that's going to have a bright future with us. Caden Record. Caden Record is one of our guys that, another yes coach guy, right? Another kid that really does what you ask of him, and you could solve. I would say the Caden Record that I have today on the football field is different than the Caden Record I had in July, which is good. He's become more physical. He's become a player. And he's going to have a role for us next year too at the JV level. So I'm just happy to have him back. A great kid. So Chandler Wisenhand. Chandler is a kid that I couldn't find a specific position for this year. I didn't know where he would fit in. And as the year went on, I saw the skills he had. I think he's also, just like I said with Caden Record, Chandler is a guy that is a different football player today than he was last July. Different kid. And he is a kid that I want to work to we need to get the ball in his hands next year. He's a kid that is sneaky athletic. I know he's tall and lanky, but he did a good job this year for us. He got a varsity run. He'll tell you 1 yard in that varsity game, right? But he's a kid that you want to have on your team. He's a yes coach kid. He'll do anything for you. He's a kid that I look forward to being around every day at practice, and he's a kid that is going to really flourish next year in what we do. So I believe that is all we have for our JV football team. And before we end today's awards, I just want to say that, like I said before, every team has its certain characteristics that make them different than the team before them. I just want to highlight a couple things about this group in its entirety. Great kids. I would say every kid that I just talked about is a great kid, and they are here for the team. They want team success, and it's not very often that you get a bunch of kids or a bunch of young men in one group that all want the same thing and don't care if they have the ball in their hands. They just want to win. And this year, with the adversity that they faced, going forward, I think it's going to really benefit them. And I'm really proud of everything they put out this year. They really did what you asked of them, and that's valued as a coach. And they really worked hard. And to the sophomores, it's time to get after it, fellas. You're going to be varsity players next year. Some of you guys are going to have roles. It's time to really get after it. And to you freshman guys, you guys are the guys next year. Can't rely on these sophomores anymore. You are going to be the guys that lead the JV team. And it's up to you to set the example, and it's up to you to be the guys that we fall back on when we need a first down, when we need a stop, when we need a big play. All right? So, can't wait to get after it. About a month and a half, we'll be back to it, boys. We know what we need to do. Thank you.
So in a strange year, I'm here on video presenting our award ceremony for this year for the 2020 season that happened in 2021. The first thing I want to say is thank you to everybody for how patient they were, for all the parents, for all the hoops we jumped through. I know this was probably the most inconvenient year to be a parent, to be a student, to be an athlete, and all those things, but I'm really proud of how well our kids kept their eyes on the goals, on the team goals of winning all our games. And obviously this year's team ended up 4-0 in a 6-week season. Obviously we lost 2 games earlier in the year, but super proud of this team. And one thing I'll say is this was truly a season that came down to the most important thing: what we thought of each other, what our teammates thought of us, because nobody else's opinion really matters. We saw each other be tested this year. There were no playoffs, there were none of those things, but I thought this was an extremely successful year. This team, I felt like, played as well as any of our teams have here at the right times. We started off the year with a great win over Knoxville in a game which I think for the first time in a long time we've been the underdog for, the conference underdog, and that clinched the conference championship for us. We came out and played extremely well against Bushnell and took care of business real early. And then we brought in a 4A ranked team into Farmington, in Kewanee, and we really put it on them. And I think that was as physical and tough and as team-oriented play as we've had here in a long time. And I think that's the biggest win we've had here in probably 3 years. So very, very proud of this team. Very happy they got to play. I know there are a lot of people probably thinking, well, I wish we'd had the playoffs, and I catch myself doing that too. But I think we got to think about how fortunate we've been, not just to be able to play, but how fortunate we've been to have the success that we've had here. I talked to friends of mine whose kids are playing other places, and they would absolutely kill for their kids to be Farmington Farmers and have the success that we have just to be on the team. So I'm going to be happy about it. I am happy for our kids. I'm very, very, very proud of them. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about each kid, mainly because I think they deserve it. They brought something to our team, so I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but I'm going to talk about each kid. So the first young man, I'm going to talk about a group of sophomores. So to to letter as a sophomore, you have to bring something to our team. I know every sophomore dresses. If I lettered every sophomore, I don't think your sophomore letter means anything. So to letter as a sophomore, you've really got to bring something special to our team. So I'm going to talk about each one of these guys and what they brought to our team. The first sophomore that lettered for us is Gage Rankin. Gage Rankin was our backup quarterback. Without him, we had nothing behind. We would have had to move guys out of other offensive positions to play there. And I knew we were better with somebody else there. Gage is going to have a great career for us. Gage practiced with us every day. He put everything into it. Super hard worker. And this little talk about Gage is going to be the shortest one in the next couple of years, because in the next couple of years I think he's going to do some great things for our program. So very proud of him and happy to have him. The next kid, I'll say this next kid is one of the hardest workers that we have. He was immediately going to be the next lineman in for us. And he's a kid that I definitely know I can count on. And as a coach, when you have a guy that you know is there solid, you don't have to think about, it's just a safety blanket for you. And he's a kid I believe he's going to be a star player for us in the future. But definitely a kid we can count on. I think he's going to be a leader for us, and that's Virgil Haggard. The next young man for us is going to letter for the second time. Uniquely, he's our kicker. Does a great job there. I think you're going to see him in a lot of different roles next year. I know he loves kicking, but I know he loves playing the other positions too, and hopefully we're going to get all those out of him. But just a great kid, team-oriented kid, Sam Grunwald. This young man, we didn't know where we were going to play and what we were going to do, but he was ready. And when we had an injury in the third game of the season, he stepped up and played great for us. And he's a kid that we know we can count on, and I think he's going to be, one of those electrifying players in the next couple of years for us. Logan Morse. This young man started 2 games for us this year, and I envision him being a huge part of what we do in the future. Started 2 games. When we played pounded out teams that wanted to run it, we had to have him on the field because he's a pounded out type of guy. And I think without guys like him, your team can become finesse real fast. But when you have guys like him out there, you'll be anything but that. And a very important player for us, that's Reese Shemansky. Okay, so those are our sophomores that lettered. And those are guys that you're going to see a lot more from in the future. This next group is also a group that you're going to see a lot more of over the next couple of years. The first kid, so these are letter winners and juniors on our team. This first young man is Austin Thompson. He moved here from United. Good kid, hard worker, and he's falling into place, playing the other sports, doing very well for us, and potentially a receiver, defensive back in the future for us. That's Austin Thompson. Here's a kid that's starting to get himself pretty dedicated for us. I think if he dedicates himself over the summer, he can be a really good player for us. And pretty special kid I've really watched grow up over the years, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. That's Jeremy Schluter. This kid, unfortunately, had an injury. I think he would have got some minutes for us this year. A quiet leader on our team, and he takes care of the guys. He's got his own group of guys that he takes care of, and he is a real caretaker. And you need guys like that on your team. Players know more about players than coaches know about players, and players can help each other to get along. And this kid constantly took guys under his wing. And I don't know if he knows it or not, but when he got hurt, our team missed a little chunk. And it was less about even his physical attributes as it was what he brought to us on the team. But I see leadership skills in him, and that's Brock Capitani. Here's another young man that also got injured and missed the end of his season. I think he's got a ton of potential, and he and I have talked about it. How much he puts into it, I think, is how much he'll get out of it. And a good kid. Glad that he came back to football this year for us, and it'll be an interesting year for him. Austin Asbury. Here's a kid that's played for us. Very undersized on the line. Does a good job for us. And I think he's played some D-line. He's also played some linebacker for us. And obviously a good wrestler, does a lot of things. Mark Hayes. Dylan Hood is a kid that's just scratching the surface of what he can do. He's a kid that I think maybe I see more potential in him than he sees in himself. But I think when he gets a hold of that and really believes in himself, I think he can definitely be something to help us along the way. So he's a kid that I think once he starts believing in himself, he'll really get moving in the right direction. Dylan Hood. This young man, great kid, great team player. Did not play a whole bunch for us this year. I expect him to play a bunch next year. Hard worker, good kid, smart kid, good athlete. I don't think there's a person on the team that doesn't love him, and that's Kane Fox. This next young man, I think, has a ton of potential too, and I think his hard work and his commitment this summer is going to determine how his Farmington football future plays out. Moved here from IBC. He is a physical kid, a good player for us. I think he would have played more on a team that wasn't so senior laden as this year's team, but it was tough to get in the lineup this year. But I'm excited to see what the future holds for Mason DeMont. Here's another kid, super reliable for us. First guy in on the offensive line or on the defensive line. First guy in at tackle for us. He's a kid that he will do a lot for us next year. We're just not sure where we're going to use him yet. He knows that, but he's a kid that's putting in the work and just an excellent kid. He's a tough kid, and he's a kid you can count on all the time. That's Austin Hutt. This next young man, I'm glad he was out. Yeah, I'm glad he was out this year, and I think it was very good for him. And he is a heck of a player and a tough kid, and he knows when he's focused, there's nothing he can't do. Just a special kid, and football needs him, and he needs football, and it's been a good marriage between the two, and we're going to continue that and see what he's got next year. That's Travis Sutherland. There is not a coach that we played that didn't mention this kid after the game and said we just couldn't handle that kid. He was a great player for us as a sophomore. He's a big body. He's a tough kid. He's a great kid, a great leader. And this kid potentially can do, as a high school player, he's as good as anybody we've had. I expect him to take a step up next year on that too. And excited to have him. That's Chris Haggard. This kid's a wide receiver, started for us for the second time, battled health issues this year, but was a great player for us. Definitely a big play guy, can do a lot of different things, but definitely a long baller. Very good player for us. Going to be a senior, and I look for him to have an even bigger year next year. That's Corbin Rutledge. This next kid is a junior, and I would say he brings the most diverse package of personality and physical ability of anybody we have. He's great catching the ball, running with the ball. He's a very good blocker. He's willing to do the dirty work. But more than that, he's willing to take care of his teammates. There are times he'll see me walk in and there's a situation and he'll say, "Coach, I've handled it." And those guys are worth $1 million. Those are the guys that I refer to those guys as the heartbeat of your team. And sometimes they go unrecognized, but they shouldn't. But this kid definitely is there, and I think he'll be very special for us next year as well. And that's Ethan Evans. Here's a kid that if you told me he was going to have the year he had this year, I'd have said, I think he's a year away. But I was wrong. And I would say he's the most dedicated kid that we have when it comes to lifting and working out and making himself better and working for his teammates. The kid loves football. He's a great kid. I had a girl in our school that not even friends with him, and called me and said, "Do you know what kind of leader Kevin Schultz is with the other kids? He's doing this, he's doing that. He's taking kids to MTZ on his own time after they do the school workout." she said, I just really think you need to know this about him. That's special. When that happens, that's special. And Kevin Schultz is definitely a very special player for us. Last junior. Here's a kid that, when you look at him, and we tease him all the time, and we love him, but we tease him. When you look at him, you're not sure he can do the things that he does on the field, but he constantly makes big plays. He's slippery. He's tough. He's just a go-getter as a player, and I think we finally found the way we're using him. His approach to sports is really refreshing, and I think he's going to do big things for us next year. That's Riley Embry. Okay, so I'm really going to take a minute here when we talk about our seniors, and we have a big group of them, and I want to make sure every kid gets their due here when we talk about them. So this first young man for us, great kid for us, 4-year player for us, and this kid, I'll tell you this, from the day he walked in here to the day he left, he got a lot better. We call him Mr. Touchdown because in his sophomore year he got in the end zone, and I think he's still bragging about it. But what an awesome kid to have on the team. What a special kid. I will really miss having him on the team because just what he brought to our team, and we needed him like he needed football. So really going to miss having Cody Ray on the team. Here's a kid that hadn't played since he was a freshman. And he came to me and said, Coach, can I go out? And I told him, I said, you can, but you can't expect to play. So imagine that, because I said, we've had all 4 of these grades, seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, lifting all the way through this thing. And I said, I can't jump you over them when you just come out like that. And he said, I don't care, I just want to be part of the team. And that's truly what he meant. And I think had he played all 4 years, I think he might have been an all-conference safety. I think he might have been a wide receiver for us. I don't know, but a great teammate, and his teammates respect him, and I respect him because he's done some things that aren't easy in life, and he's brought himself out of it. And I'm really happy with the way he's got things going for himself. So that's Remington Isbell. Okay, this kid is a rough, tough kid, a very good athlete. He's a kid that, man, he just wanted to play football, and you love having guys like that. And he would do whatever you asked him to do. He was our punter. He was great at it. He was an outside linebacker. He was great at it. And he's a kid that I think of he just could do anything. He could run, he could hit, and I think the senior group really embodied that, of kids that could just kind of do a little bit of everything. And that's Stephen DeVries. Braden Smith is an awesome kid for us. He didn't play a bunch last year and waited his turn. And I know that wasn't fun. And the one thing about Braden Smith is if you didn't know Braden, people would go, oh man, I don't know how good he is. But Braden Smith will hit you. Braden Smith can cover. He's got better hands than his brother. I'll throw that out there. But Braden Smith ended up being a heck of a player for us, and I'm very proud of him because this was a year where he was trying to get, he's working on his future and doing things like that, and he stuck it out and became a great player for us. So, Braden Smith. If you told me this next kid was going to start for us, I would have said I hope so. And I think he played 4 years for us, and he had every reason to give up on it. Because I don't know that he ever saw a light where he was going to be one of the starting guys. But he continued to work, and he continued to get better. He's an awesome kid, and I think that's kind of one of our trademarks here at Farmington is those kids that stay and work. You're going to get there, This kid didn't want to win any awards. He didn't want a thing from anybody. He just wanted to get on the field. And this year he earned the job at center. That's Drew Vaughter, and did a great job. As a freshman, this kid probably one of the squirreliest kids. This was a group of squirrels as freshmen, but this kid, goofball as a freshman. But he worked And we knew if he was going to help us, he was going to have to get bigger. And he got bigger, and he got stronger, and he was a consistent worker for us. And he really matured, ended up being a very good football player and a great young man. One of the guys in this class that you always remember that kind of held things together. And he's one of those guys you never really mentioned because he was always doing his job. And that's Brock Renner. This kid moved here, and he had a lot of lofty expectations. And if I've ever been unfair to a kid, it was probably him at times. And I know that, and I regret that sometimes. But it was the only way I knew how to get him to be the player that he wanted to be. And I think by the end of the year, I think by this year, he proved that he could be what he said he was going to be. And I'm glad that he did that. And I respect him for what he was able to accomplish. But ended up being a great player. He'd be the first one to tell you quarterback's not all glory when you play for us. And he knows that. But what a player he ended up being. I'm just very proud of him and his improvement. Josh Mcmillan. So this kid, everybody on the team loves him. He's a great kid. If you had asked me a year ago what I really honestly thought, I'd have said he's a great kid and he's too smart to fall asleep and make mistakes like he does on the field. And this year there was none of that. I thought he played lights out football for us and was an extremely important player and just did a fantastic job. He's a kid that I'll remember from this class just because he was so team-oriented. I know he wanted the ball in his hands. I know he wanted to be a wide receiver. I know all those things. He never got to have it. He took the role that I gave him and did the best he could with it and did a great job. And those are the players that make Farmington special. Sam Fletcher. Here's a kid we begged to go out. His brother was an all-area player for us. And we begged this kid. We need you, and he came out last year and he loved it, and you love to see that when a kid comes out and they love the sport. And this year I thought that he really came into his own and really blossomed into a great player. And as a senior, that's what you want, and I'm glad he got to have this year because really left his mark on Farmington football. That's Ty Anderson. Here's a kid that when I was in the fall and I thought the season was going to get canceled, I mean, my heart broke for him. Dryden Lewis was going to be our running back last year and broke his leg. And, you know, he came back to the playoff game, and we were real cautious with him because we wanted to be careful because we thought, you know, the next year is going to be a big year for him. We want to be him to be full strength. We don't get hurt again. And then all of a sudden, you know, COVID hits. Who would have thought? But this kid, for us, on defensively especially, I mean, he was just an X factor. He could take guys out of the game that no matter who they were, we could put him on them, and he could manhandle them and eliminate them from the game. He has come a long ways. His freshman year, he missed a game because he was playing with his dog and forgot. I mean, so that's where we started, and now he's going to go to college. And I could care less about football. He's going to go to college, and that makes me super proud and makes you remember why you got in this profession. So, Dryden Lewis. Okay, Jake Johnson is a kid that's always been a hard hitter and a tough kid. Jake Johnson is a kid that I don't think gets the credit he deserves. He's one of those guys, one of those tough, knucklehead type guys that you love, that you have to have in football. When Jake Johnson decided it was time to get strong and he was going to commit to the weight room, everybody else did too, and it became the cool thing. And I don't think that Jake probably gets the credit he deserves for what our team accomplished this year, because he was kind of that, I hate to use the word quiet with Jake because he's not quiet, but in his leadership skills, you know, people followed him. And when he decided the cool thing to do was to get strong and lift, man, our team took off. So definitely brought a lot to our team and to our culture. Jake Johnson. When I think of Farmington football, I think of Cam Oldfield, because Cam Oldfield was an excellent player for us, but he worked himself into being that. Cam Oldfield very easily could have been average, and I mean that as a compliment, but God didn't look at Cam Oldfield and say, this is a football player. he looked at Cam Oldfield and gave him a heart that said, this kid wants to be a football player. And he put the work into it to become what he is. Cam Oldfield's headed off to play college football now. And I mean, I couldn't be prouder of him, but really proud of the leader he became. He's probably the kid that I think of the most when young kids, JFL kids, or any young kids showed an interest in football. Man, he'd give up his time to help them. And that's without me even knowing it. Just different times I saw it, and very special. And the community is very special to Cam, and makes me very proud of him. Three-year starter for us. Wyatt Perkins started at corner for us. And as a sophomore, you know what? He got beat a couple times at corner. And maybe played out of position, but we had to have him play there because we needed him. He never complained. He never made excuses. As a junior, we moved him to linebacker and running back. He played linebacker all the time, and he was tough and he was good at it. And this year we needed a guard, you know. And I said, look, Wyatt, this isn't going to be glorious, but I need you on the line. You've gotten big and strong. Here's your reward, right? He moved to guard. And in our first game, well, I'd be the first one to tell you, he got shelled. He was not ready for that. And by the end of the year, he became a great guard. And Wyatt Perkins, a great leader. If you needed something, he was going to get it done. Did a very good job for us. We'll miss him, Wyatt Perkins. This young man is a guy that everybody on our team loves, including me. And much like Sam Fletcher, I know he wanted to play wide receiver and he wanted to get the ball in his hands. He was an excellent defensive back for us. He was a great leader. He was quiet, but he was a great leader for us. And he's a kid that the team always came first. And when other kids were talking like it wasn't, he would tell them the team comes first. And everybody listened to him. And turned himself into a good football player. Got dinged out there at the end of the year, which we wish hadn't happened. But definitely a very special kid when I think of him. When I think of his class, I'll definitely remember him and the things he was able to bring to us. That's David Fisher. If you met this kid when he was a freshman and then I told you I think he's one of the smartest football players I've ever had, you'd tell me I was crazy. But Kyle Peckham is one of those leaders on the team that maybe if you saw him in the classroom and maybe you saw him in town, you'd say, are you sure he's the leader? But Kyle Peckham was definitely a great leader for us on the field. He lined guys up. He always knew what was going on. And I think Kyle knew that physically, Kyle got strong and physically. He's one of the toughest kids, but his toughness doesn't come from being physical. His toughness comes from being mentally tough. And I think he knew, though, that other kids on our team maybe could do physically what he could do, but he always knew what was coming from the offense because he'd studied so hard and he knew the things that were going to happen. And he knew everybody's job. He could line everybody up. There were games, in the Knoxville game, I don't know that we ever would have got lined up right on the short practice time. And that was my fault for not having that ready, but Kyle covered that up. And in the second half, he did it and he was lights out. I just said, you figure it out and get it done. That's not easy when your coach tells you to do that. It's not fair and it's not easy. But he was able to do it, so definitely a very special player in this class, Kyle Peckham. Okay, I want to talk about all-conference awards. We had a number of kids receive all-conference, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and read those off. All-conference is great, but I'm telling you, what your teammates think of you is the most important thing. And I'll always say that, what your teammates and coaches think of you. So I know there are a number of guys on here, and there are a number of guys that are waiting in the wings that didn't get it that will get it next year. Inevitably, every year, there's somebody that comes in with a chip on their shoulder to prove, I'm going to be on that list next year. So I think being on the list is special and it's great. So, but this should make everybody hungry. So I'm going to read off guys. The first group is special mention guys, people that the conference felt needed to be recognized as members of the all-conference team. Special mention offense, Chris Haggard. Special mention offense, Ethan Evans. Special mention offense, Jake Johnson. Special mention defense, Dryden Lewis. Special mention defense, David Fisher. Special mention defense, Braden Smith. Second team offense, Wyatt Perkins. Second team offense, Drew Vaughter. Second team offense, Riley Embry. Second team defense, Stephen DeVries. Second team defense, Travis Sutherland. First team defense, Chris Haggard. First team offense, Corbin Rutledge. First team defense, Kevin Schultz. First team defense, Wyatt Perkins. First team offense, Cam Oldfield. First team defense, Sam Fletcher. First team defense, Jacob Johnson. First team defense, Kyle Peckham. First team offense, Dryden Lewis. First team offense, Josh Mcmillan. First team offense, Brock Renner. And first team offense, Ty Anderson. So obviously great to be well represented there. And we feel very good at that. Now for the team awards, and I think these are important for one reason. This is what your teammates think of you. I tell the kids, I believe awards are for the seniors, but if you vote for a junior, that's okay. And I'll never override it. Like, these awards are not mine. These are the kids' awards, except for the Kurt Anderson Award, which obviously the coaches choose. But these are guys that their teammates picked them, and I don't think there's a bad one in there. So with that, I'm going to move ahead to the team awards. Most improved player. I think there were a few kids that could have been up for this, but there was no way I could argue with the team on this, and it was fairly cut and dry this year. And this kid, honestly, when we put him in and gave him a chance, I didn't know if he'd be able to do it. I mean, I knew he'd work hard at it, but I didn't know if he was going to have the ability to hold up in that first game. And there was a moment in the first game when he was panicking a little bit, he was getting beat, and I walked over to him and I said, "Are you going to be able to do this, or am I going to have to take you out? Because you deserve this, but if you can't do it, I have to take you out." And he went out there the next snap and he buckled down and he was fantastic the rest of the year. And I'm just very proud of him and very, very proud of what he was able to do. Most improved player for Farmington, Drew Vaughter. Okay, best offensive player voted for your teammates. Here's a kid, like I said, was new to the game, but explosive. Made big plays when we needed him to make plays, and that's what you're supposed to do as a senior. And just a great kid. I wish we had him for 4 years, but I don't know that if we had, he could have played any better than he played this year, because he played outstanding. Best offensive player for Farmington, Ty Anderson. Best defensive player. This kid received almost every vote from his teammates. And like I said, I always say to the kids, I believe awards are for seniors. But sometimes a junior just lights it up, and he did this year. Our best defensive player, one of our leaders, Kevin Schultz. So the MVP we split up into two. We have an MVP for the skill players, and we have an MVP for the linemen, because, you know, I know for a fact the linemen are where all the studs play. That's just where it is, you know. And I tell our kids that all the time. The skill kids are going to get all the highlights, and they're going to be on the news, and everybody's going to be talking about them. But when you really think about who the studs are, you know, anybody run around and catch a ball, right? You know, I'm kidding a little bit, but the linemen are the heartbeat of this team. And this year's most valuable lineman, for lots of reasons, not just the physical things he put on the field, but for his leadership and his hard work and being a leader every day in that weight room. Our most valuable lineman is Cam Oldfield. For a skill player, we had a junior very close. But our most valuable skill player is a kid who waited maybe 18 months to get to do it. And just very proud of him and what he's grown into and what he's become. But definitely a guy that deserves the MVP award from us, and that's Dryden Lewis. So this is a team with a ton of seniors on it. And I believe the most important award is the Kurt Anderson Award. Kurt Anderson is what Farmington is about. Okay, it goes to that kid that is a leader, put his heart out there, would do anything for the team. And, you know, I really picked the award, but I talked to my other coaches about it. And there were a lot of names thrown out there because we had so many great seniors. But when it really came down to it, we all agreed. For the first time in a long time, we all agreed who it should be. And this year's Kurt Anderson Award winner, without a doubt, of a kid that brought and did everything to our team. I'm going to say this. I've never coached a kid as long as I coached this kid and never met their parents. Because at some point there's just some dealing where you talk to them or just a little bit of here and there. Never met his parents until yesterday. You know, and I think that's so unique. And I'm not saying it's good or I'm not saying it's bad, but I think it's so unique that his parents just said, go out there and prove it. And he's a kid that went out and proved it. So the Kurt Anderson Memorial Award goes to senior Wyatt Perkins. Very deserving. So a couple things left. The All-Conference, the Academic All-State and the All-State Awards and the Journal Star team, that stuff's not out yet. And I know we're crunching the end of the year, and I'll try to post that stuff when it comes out. I'm sure people will see it. And that's something, you know, obviously, you know, people want to see and want to know. But the most important thing about being on a team, and you remember this, and your dads will tell you this, and your moms will tell you this, you know, anybody that was on a team will tell you this. I'm 44 years old, and we'll still see some of our buddies